Hello, everybody. Just a very short commentary on some things. A news story gave me a great chance to talk about a very particular, concrete issue I have in a way that should be very accessible. So, just for the introduction and sort of in concordance with the principle I'm going to talk about, go check the actual news story I'm talking about yourself, so you're gathering the information first-handed and not just trusting me, because I'm often not the greatest fact-check person. But I did go back and look at this before talking about it. So today, one of the big stories on sort of these social media things, it kept popping up to me, so I'm sure it mattered a little bit, was that a Google self-driving car crashed and people were injured. And this is how a lot of the news articles phrased it. Or if you were really lucky, you got one of the articles that actually said a Google self-driving car was hit by another car. And I'm sure immediately the very big important difference there sticks out is that the actual story is a complete non-story. Right? There's nothing interesting about the fact that a new prototype of car, in terms of its safety with its own navigation, was hit by someone else in a manner that was not at all Google's responsibility. From what I've seen, the actual result was literally a Google car was stopped at a parking light or railroad crossing of some kind, or intersection, I think it used the term. And another car failed to stop as it approached the intersection from behind the car and just smacked into it. So this tells us absolutely nothing about the safety of the self-driving of Google vehicles. There's absolutely nothing learned from that. But it became a big story because it was, and this is the only reason I care, this is a perfect concrete illustration of a non-story that still gets reported on because it lets newspapers get traffic without having to have any substance or reporting skill, or we could even say intelligence. That's obviously not quite accurate, but that's the fundamental problem with the story, is that it is not an event. It's not news, etc. But I think it's a good chance to go through a very important little thing, which we say occasionally, but just for emphasis, is anytime there's a news story, if you're going to get involved in debating people over it, or writing about it, or recording YouTube videos about it, it's very important that you check the actual mechanical facts of the matter before you start focusing on people's opinions. Because to be rational, and I think the experience you'll have is to be correct, which tends to derive from being rational, it is much better to start with just a simple question: what factually do we know? And move from there to, is this information we need to care about? What are the stakes involved? What are the moral concerns? What are our interpretations? And this, I think, is the perfect example because there's two different models in which you could approach this story. The first one is that, like me, though now I've gone on YouTube, but like me, you could see in your news feed something that says, Google car injury wreck, something something, hashtag clickbait. And you say, okay, I have some interest in self-driving cars. It's kind of interesting. Google as a company generally has some news value. And you click on it and actually read the story. This is very important. If you read the story and just look for the factual aspects of the story, the information you get is a Google car was stopped at an intersection, and a car that was coming up behind it failed to hit its brakes, and some number of people were injured. And then you say, rationally say, okay, a car that was testing a new driving system was hit by someone, and the car with this new driving system was not at all responsible for the crash. So that's not new. That's the end of your, actual concern with the story, because you realize nothing of note happened. It's the same in some sense as a story that says, the ocean continues to be full of water and fish and Cthulhu. On the other hand, if someone just looked at the headline or just looked at the first line or two of the story, they might erroneously get the impression that this raises a safety concern about Google's self-driving cars, right? Because now they've been involved in a crash where someone got injured. Dun, dun, dun. And so this might lead them to thinking that they should be more skeptical of the self-driving car technology, or maybe just skeptical of Google in particular. Maybe they should be more skeptical of the place of machines in their life, anything like that. Except there's two problems with that, and this is what we've gone over. What's wrong with that view? Well, one, it's not really that well supported, because even if it was Google's fault, regular cars crash all the time. So merely a Google car crashing says essentially nothing about whether or not they're better than human drivers. Two, they're deriving an opinion from falsehoods. So once you start deriving an opinion from falsehoods, it tends to get off the rails of being correct very quickly, because you're walking west and trying to get to a location east of you. Not going to work. You have to go really far and do some course correction. And so that was just, I think this was just a great moment to emphasize this problem and this important concern, which is there's no point in forming opinions on issues if you're not going to do the factual research to actually get clarification on the facts of the matter. Because if you've not read the facts, then your interpretations are not based on reality. Your conjecture will often be backwards, and you'll be reporting on things that didn't happen. Well, kind of defeats the point of reporting. So thank you for everybody watching. Still working on my video setup and everything. Biggest thing, if you enjoy the content, please share it so we can get more exposure. Thank you, anybody who's watching, and have a nice day.